In this next part, we're going to go over dilation. And as I stated before, if you remember the rules for dilation when it comes to absolute value and quadratic, then you will be perfectly fine when it comes to cubic because it's going to be the same rules. So at the very top, I brought back the rules. So for vertical stretch is when the number that's outside in the front is more than 1. Vertical compress is when the number that's, again, also outside but is less than 1. Now for horizontal is when the number is inside a function, and horizontal stretch is when the number is less than 1. Horizontal compress, again, when the number is inside a function but it's greater than 1. So let's do a little review for absolute value and quadratic. Now in example 11, I wrote out the two functions. H of x is written in absolute value form and g of x is written in quadratic form, but they both have 3 over 8 outside and in the front. So h of x has 3 over 8 outside the absolute value lines, and g of x has 3 over 8 outside the parenthesis. Both of them are in front. So 3 over 8, if you look at it, we see that the top number, numerator, is less than the bottom number, denominator. So if top is less than bottom, then that means that this fraction, this number, is less than 1. So since it's outside in front and it's less than 1, then we're going to say vertical compress by 3 over 8. So vertical because it's outside in the front, and key phrase out in the front. Compress because it's less than 1, and then you have to include by 3 over 8. All right, now over here, example 12. Now n of x is written in absolute value, p of x is written in quadratic form. Both of them have the same numbers. Now in absolute value, you can see the difference between absolute value lines and parentheses. Quadratic is the same as what we did in example 10, since we have two numbers where we have a number that's in front of x and then we have that minus 4. We want to keep them separate and to be intact with their form, hence we have a second set of parentheses. Now they both have 5 over 2 inside the absolute value line and inside the outer parenthesis, key phrase outer parenthesis, and in front of x. So that's going to be a horizontal dilation. So let's take a look at the fraction. Since we see that the numerator, top, is greater than the denominator, bottom. So if top is greater than bottom, that means our number is going to be more than 1. Since it's more than 1, we're going to say horizontal compress. But don't forget, since it's horizontal, we have to say horizontal compress by the reciprocal number. So horizontal compress by 2 over 5. Now I'm not going to worry about the minus 4. Again, we're just going to focus on the dilation. So to review, for example 12, it's horizontal because the number is inside the absolute value line or inside the outer parenthesis. And it's compressed because the number, the fraction, is more than 1. And then when you write out the answer, you always have to do the reciprocal. So since it's 5 over 2 in the equation, we write out 2 over 5. And then vice versa if you're given the transformation and you were to write out the equation. So make sure you remember that for horizontal. And again, it's going to be the same rules if it was cubic form. So let's take a look at the next example. Example 13, we have a of x equals to 2 over 3 x to the third power. Now, here you don't have any visible parenthesis, but even if you don't have the visible parenthesis, 2 over 3 is basically meaning that it's outside and the front. So let's take a look at the number 2 over 3. Top less than bottom. So the number, the fraction is less than 1. So since it's outside less than 1, it's going to be vertical compressed by 2 over 3. So again, Vertical because it's outside in the front, even though it doesn't have the visible parenthesis. But if you have a problem like this, it's okay to write down the parenthesis, stating that 2 over 3 as the outside. Compressed because 2 over 3 is less than 1. And then you always have to include by what factor, which is by 2 over 3. Now, example 14, similar to example 13, b of x equals to 7 over 4 times x to the third power. Now, the 7 over 4, since it doesn't have any visible parentheses, we can safely say that it's outside. So it's going to be vertical. Now, let's take a closer look at the number. We see that the top is greater than the bottom. So if the numerator is greater than the denominator, then that means that the fraction is greater than 1. So this is going to be a vertical stretch by 7 over 4. So vertical because it's outside, stretch because it's more than 1, and then we got to include by 7 over 4. All right, now example 15, we have g of x equals to the cube of 16x, or 16 times x. Now here, since we do have the visible parenthesis, because 1 over 6 is inside the parenthesis, or inside the outer parenthesis in front of x, so it's going to be horizontal. Now 1 over 6, since the top is less than the bottom, we can safely say that 1 over 6 is less than 1. So since it's less than 1, we will clarify this or confirm that this will be horizontal stretch by 6 over 1. Now, even though we have horizontal stretch by 6 over 1, you always have to simplify the number. So actually our final answer is horizontal stretch by 6. Now it's okay if you, in your work, you said horizontal stretch by 6 over 1, but what you really want to do is that you want to box your answer, stating that it's actually horizontal stretch by 6. Now, example 16, we have h of x equals the cube of 5x. Now, 5 is inside the outer parenthesis, and we know that 5 is greater than 1, so that means that this is going to be a horizontal compress, and then as always for horizontal, we must write the reciprocal. So horizontal compressed by 1 over 5. So as I stated before, make sure you remember that horizontal, always write the reciprocal of the number. Vertical, the number stays the same.